I was sitting in my lawyer's office 3 months ago, holding a copy of my grandmother's will in my hands. Martha had passed away peacefully at 82, and she left me her house. The little two-story place in Selwood, Portland, where I spent every summer as a kid, where she taught me how to fix bicycles and bake apple pies from scratch. My chest filled with this overwhelming gratitude because she trusted me with something so valuable. But underneath that joy, there was this gnawing worry. I kept thinking about my dad's reaction when he found out, about how he always favored my older brother Tyler. Something in my gut told me this was not going to go smoothly. I decided to keep quiet about the inheritance for a while, at least until after the memorial service. 2 weeks later, everything started falling apart. Before I tell you how my own father tried to steal my inheritance and hand it to my brother on a silver platter, I want to know where you are watching this from. Drop your city or country in the comments. And if you have ever dealt with family betrayal, hit that like button because you are going to want to hear how this story ends. Trust me, the lawyer's call changed everything. Now let me take you back to where it all started. Let me give you some context about my family. I grew up in Portland with my dad Robert, who is 58 now, and used to be a sales manager before he retired. My mom died when I was 12, and it has been just the three of us ever since. Well, four if you count my grandmother Martha, who lived about 20 minutes away. My brother Tyler is 3 years older than me, 32 now, and he has never really held down a steady job. He bounced from one thing to another, always coming back to live with Dad when things did not work out. Our dad always bailed him out, gave him money, made excuses for his laziness. Meanwhile, I moved out at 18. I worked my way through college on scholarships and loans. Now I am 29, working as a civil engineer, and I have been supporting myself for over a decade. My grandmother Martha was the only person who really understood me. After Mom died, I would spend entire summers at her place. She would wake me up early to help her in the garden. We would spend afternoons in her garage where she taught me how to use tools and fix things. She always said the same thing. Stand up for yourself, Angus. Do not let anyone make you feel small. She was not fond of Tyler because she saw right through his entitled attitude. She worked hard her whole life, and she valued people who did the same. The house she left me was beautiful. 3 bedrooms, hardwood floors, a small garden out back. It sat in a quiet neighborhood where everyone knew each other. The property was worth around $350,000, maybe more. I had plans for it. I wanted to renovate the kitchen, refinish the floors, paint the exterior, a soft gray blue. I estimated I would need about $20,000 for repairs, but it would be worth it. This would be my first real home. No more rent, no more landlords. Just me and the house that held all my best childhood memories. The first week after I got the will, I kept everything quiet. My lawyer, James Whitmore, advised me to register the property in my name as soon as possible. But I wanted to wait until after grandmother's memorial service, which was scheduled for a month later. I thought it would avoid unnecessary drama. I did not want Dad or Tyler finding out right away and making a scene during what should be a time of mourning, so I kept my mouth shut and started making plans. I sketched out renovation ideas. I researched contractors. I felt this incredible excitement building inside me. Then one Tuesday evening, Dad called me. I was at home after a long day on a construction site, and his name popped up on my screen. When I answered, his voice sounded different, tense. He asked me if grandmother had left me anything in her will. I felt my stomach drop. I told him she left me some personal items, some keepsakes, nothing specific. He went quiet for a second, then said, "Your grandmother always had her favorites." The bitterness in his voice was unmistakable. I tried to change the subject, but he was not having it. He hung up shortly after, and I sat there feeling uneasy. A few days later, Tyler called. He immediately started complaining about how grandmother did not leave him anything. He said I was her grandson too, but I guess I do not matter. I tried to offer some generic comfort, but I could tell he was fishing for information. Then he asked directly, "Did she leave you the house?" My heart started pounding. I deflected. I asked why he wanted to know. He got irritated and hung up on me. That night I barely slept. I knew they were onto something. I called James the next morning and told him we needed to speed up the ownership registration process. The following Saturday, Dad showed up at my job site unannounced. I was reviewing blueprints with my supervisor when I saw him walking across the dirt lot. He said he needed to talk about family matters and suggested we grab coffee. We went to a small cafe 2 blocks away. The moment we sat down, he cut straight to it. "I know Martha left you the house." I asked him how he found out. He said he had connections at the probate office, someone who owed him a favor. I felt anger rising in my chest. That was private information possibly obtained illegally. Then he hit me with his proposal. He said the house should belong to the whole family, not just me. He wanted me to sell it and split the money between Tyler and myself. I told him absolutely not. Grandmother wanted me to have it. It was in the will. Her decision. He leaned back in his chair and called me selfish. He said Tyler needed help, that I was always the one who got everything. I could not believe what I was hearing. I stood up, threw a $10 bill on the table, and walked out. As I left, he called after me saying this was not over. 2 weeks passed after that coffee shop confrontation. I finished the registration paperwork. James handled everything, and I officially became the legal owner. I received the keys and the deed. I planned to visit the house that Saturday to start assessing what repairs were needed. I woke up early, grabbed my toolkit, and drove over. When I pulled up to the curb, I saw a moving truck parked in the driveway. My first thought was that maybe a neighbor was moving, but then I saw a middle-aged couple walking around the front yard with a real estate agent. My confusion turned to alarm. I got out of my car and walked up to them. The agent, a guy in his 40s wearing a polo shirt with a real estate company logo, smiled at me. I asked what was going on. He introduced himself as Steve and said he was showing the property for Mr. Robert Anderson, my father. I felt like someone had punched me in the gut. I told him this was my house. I was the legal owner. Steve looked confused. He pulled out some papers from his folder and showed me a listing agreement signed 2 days earlier. I looked at the signature. I was sitting in my lawyer's office 3 months ago, holding a copy of my grandmother's will in my hands. Martha had passed away peacefully at 82, and she left me her house. The little 2-story place in Selwood, Portland, where I spent every summer as a kid, where she taught me how to fix bicycles and bake apple pies from scratch. My chest filled with this overwhelming gratitude because she trusted me with something so valuable. But underneath that joy, there was this gnawing worry. I stood in the driveway after everyone left shaking. Not from fear, from pure rage. I got in my car and drove straight to my father's house. The 15-minute drive felt like an eternity. My hands gripped the steering wheel so tight my knuckles turned white. I kept replaying what just happened. My own father forged my signature. He tried to sell my house without my permission. When I got to his place, I did not even knock. I walked right in. Dad was sitting on the couch watching a basketball game. He looked up when I stormed in, and for a split second I saw guilt flash across his face, but it disappeared fast. I demanded to know what he did. He calmly said the house belonged to the family. I shouted that he forged my signature, that what he did was illegal. He shrugged and said I was being dramatic, that he did what was best for everyone. Then Tyler walked out of the hallway. He had this smug grin on his face. He said, "Finally, some justice." I turned to him and asked if he knew about this. He said of course he did. Dad and Tyler had talked about it. Tyler said the money from selling the house could pay for his trip to Europe. He actually said he deserved a break. I was speechless. A vacation. My inheritance was supposed to fund my brother's vacation. That is when Dad stood up. He looked me dead in the eye and said he already found a buyer willing to pay $360,000. He said the money would go toward paying off Tyler's vacation, clearing Tyler's debts, and giving himself some retirement cushion. I told him he could not do this. I had legal ownership. He laughed and said, "We will see about that. I am your father. I have rights too." Tyler chimed in saying, "I always got everything, and now it was his turn." I realized there was no reasoning with them. I said one thing before I left. This is not over. You will hear from my lawyer. Dad actually laughed at that. He said lawyers cost money and asked if I was sure I wanted to waste mine. I walked out and slammed the door behind me. That night I sat alone in my apartment. All the lights were off. I just stared at the wall trying to process what happened. I felt betrayed in a way I never thought possible. This was my father, the man who raised me, and he was willing to commit fraud to take away what my grandmother left me. I thought about grandmother Martha, about all the time she told me to stand up for myself, about how she valued hard work and honesty. I understood why she chose me. She knew exactly what Dad and Tyler would try to do. The next morning I called James Whitmore. I told him everything. He listened carefully, taking notes. When I finished, he asked me to forward him the forged listing agreement that Steve had shown me. Then he did some digging. What he found made everything worse. Dad had not only forged my signature on the listing agreement, he had also filed a petition with the probate court claiming that grandmother made an error in her will. He argued that she was confused in her final days and did not mean to leave everything to me. James told me this was serious. Forgery, fraud, attempted theft. My father could face criminal charges if we pursued this. I felt sick. Did I really want to send my own father to jail? James must have sensed my hesitation. He said something I will never forget. Your father did not hesitate to commit fraud against you. You need to protect yourself. He is counting on you being too soft to fight back. That is when I made my decision. I told James to do whatever was necessary. We spent the next hour going over strategy. James would send a formal cease and desist letter to my father. We would file a complaint for fraud and forgery with the district attorney's office. We would demand full restitution and coverage of all legal fees. If Dad did not comply, we would pursue criminal charges. I gave James every piece of evidence I had: the original will, my ownership documents, text messages and emails from Dad and Tyler. Steve, the realtor, had already agreed to provide the forged contract as evidence. 1 week after my meeting with James, everything came to a head. James called my father. I was sitting in James's office when it happened. James put the call on speaker so I could hear, though I did not say anything. James introduced himself professionally. He said he was calling on behalf of his client, Angus Anderson, regarding the property at my grandmother's address. Dad's voice came through the speaker. He sounded confident, almost cocky. He said he did not know what his son told me, but the house was family property. James calmly responded that he had reviewed the legal will and the property was solely bequeathed to me. Dad said wills could be contested. James agreed, then added, but forging signatures and creating fraudulent documents cannot be excused. There was silence on the other end. James continued. He said we had the forged contract submitted to the realtor. We had the false petition filed with the court. These were criminal offenses under Oregon law. Dad stammered. He said he was just trying to help his family. James replied that committing fraud was not helping anyone. He told Dad he could face up to 5 years in prison for what he did. Then James laid out the terms. Dad would withdraw all claims to the property immediately. He would sign a notarized statement admitting to the forgery. He would pay for all legal fees incurred, which currently totaled around $12,000. If he refused, we would file criminal charges within 24 hours. Dad asked if he could speak to me. James looked at me. I shook my head. James told him I did not wish to speak with him. Dad had 48 hours to decide. The call ended. I sat there feeling a strange mix of emotions. Relief that we had taken action. Sadness that it came to this. But also certainty that I did the right thing. James reassured me that we had a strong case. Dad would be foolish not to accept the terms. Over the next 2 days, Dad called me 15 times. I did not answer any of them. He left voicemails that ranged from angry to desperate. First, he said I was ruining the family. Then he said Mom would be ashamed of me. Then he begged me to talk to him, saying we could work things out. I deleted each one without listening all the way through. Tyler sent me text messages too. He called me a traitor. He said I was selfish and cruel. I sent him one reply. I said Mom would be proud that I stood up for myself, and I told him not to contact me again. Then I blocked his number. A few of Dad's friends reached out trying to mediate. They said he was still my father, that family should forgive. I politely told them this was not about forgiveness, it was about doing what was right. They did not understand, and I did not expect them to. On the second day of the deadline, James received an email from a lawyer representing my father. Dad had hired legal counsel. The lawyer informed us that Robert Anderson agreed to all terms. He would withdraw his court petition. He would sign the admission statement. He would pay the legal fees. A meeting was scheduled at a notary office for the following week. When the day came, I walked into that office with James beside me. Dad was already there with his lawyer, a tired-looking man in his 60s. Dad looked older than I remembered. There were new lines around his eyes. His shoulders slumped. He would not look at me. Tyler was not there. I figured he was too angry or embarrassed to show up. The notary walked us through the paperwork. Dad signed the withdrawal of his court petition. He signed the statement admitting he forged my signature and attempted to defraud me of my property. He signed the agreement to pay $12,000 in legal fees within 90 days. Each signature felt like a weight lifting off my chest. When everything was done, Dad tried to say something. He called my name softly. I turned to face him. He said he was sorry, that he thought he was doing what was best. I asked him best for who? Not for me, not for grandmother's wishes. He said he knew he messed up. He asked if we could fix this. I looked at him for a long moment. Then I said, "You did not just mess up. You tried to steal from me. You broke the law. You chose Tyler over doing what was right." Tears started running down his face. I told him I needed time. A lot of time. Maybe we could talk again someday, but not now. I walked out of that office without looking back. As I drove home, I felt the strangest sensation. I had won. The house was mine, legally and completely. But it did not feel like victory. It felt hollow, sad. I had to take my own father to the brink of criminal prosecution to protect what was rightfully mine. Grandmother would have been proud that I stood my ground. But she also would have been heartbroken that it came to this. The legal battle was over. I was the sole owner of the house with no disputes, no claims, no challenges. Dad paid the legal fees in 3 installments over the next 2 months. No criminal charges were ever filed as agreed. But the damage to our relationship was done. Tyler moved to California shortly after everything settled. He went to live with his girlfriend in San Diego. We have not spoken since. Honestly, I feel relieved. I do not have to deal with his constant demands or his resentment anymore. Dad tries to reach out sometimes. He sends text messages asking how I am doing, saying he misses me. I reply occasionally, keeping things brief and polite, but I am not ready to rebuild that relationship. Maybe I never will be. Time will tell. I threw myself into renovating the house. I took 2 weeks off work and spent every day there. I painted the walls a warm cream color. I sanded and refinished the hardwood floors until they gleamed. I updated the kitchen with new countertops and appliances. I planted roses in the garden, the same kind grandmother used to grow. Every nail I hammered, every brushstroke I painted felt like honoring her memory. Sometimes I swear I could feel her presence there, like she was standing beside me saying, "You did good, kiddo." I started meeting my neighbors. There was an older couple next door who brought me homemade cookies when I moved in. A young family across the street with 2 kids who loved riding their bikes up and down the sidewalk. I joined a local bicycle repair club, something grandmother had inspired in me years ago. I met people who respected me, supported me, treated me like I mattered. It felt good to build a community of my own choosing. I also started seeing a therapist. I needed help processing everything that happened, the betrayal, the anger, the grief of losing not just my grandmother, but also my relationship with my father and brother. My therapist helped me understand that setting boundaries was not selfish, that protecting myself was necessary, that loving someone did not mean accepting their abuse or manipulation. Those sessions gave me tools to heal. 6 months after moving into the house, I woke up one Saturday morning and realized something. I was happy, genuinely happy. I was not carrying around that heavy weight of resentment anymore. I had stopped checking my phone obsessively to see if Dad called. I had stopped wondering what Tyler was doing or if he was talking badly about me. I just focused on my life, my work, my home, my new friends, and it felt liberating. I learned some valuable lessons through all of this. Family does not get a free pass to treat you badly. Blood relation does not mean you have to accept disrespect, theft, or betrayal. Loving someone does not require you to be a doormat. Setting boundaries is an act of self-respect, not selfishness. And sometimes the kindest thing you can do for yourself is to walk away from toxic people, even if they are family. Grandmother did not just leave me a house. She left me a lesson about values, about standing up for what is right, about not letting anyone diminish your worth. The house became a symbol of her trust in me. She believed I would honor her wishes and protect what she worked so hard to build. And I did. As for forgiveness, I am still working on that. I do not hate my father. I just do not trust him anymore. Maybe one day we will sit down and have an honest conversation. Maybe he will truly understand why what he did was so wrong. Maybe we will find a way to rebuild some kind of relationship. But it will be on my terms with clear boundaries. And if that never happens, I will be okay with that too. I was sitting on my front porch last autumn watching the leaves turn golden and fall from the trees in my yard. I had a cup of coffee in my hand, the same kind grandmother used to make. Strong and black with just a hint of cinnamon. The air was crisp and cool. I felt her there with me. I could almost hear her voice. Sometimes the hardest battles are the ones with people we love. But standing up for yourself does not make you the bad guy. It makes you someone who knows their worth. And maybe, just maybe, that is the greatest inheritance of all. Not the house, not the money, but the strength to protect what is rightfully yours and the wisdom to know when to walk away. I do not know if my relationship with my father will ever heal, but I know that whatever happens, I will be okay, because I learned how to stand firm in who I am. And that is something no one can ever take away from me. So here is my question for you. Have you ever had to choose between keeping the peace and standing up for yourself? Have you ever had to set boundaries with family members who did not respect you? Drop your answer in the comments because I would love to hear your story. If this resonated with you, please hit that like button and subscribe to this channel for more real-life stories about overcoming family drama and finding your strength. Share this video with someone who needs to hear that it is okay to protect themselves, even from family. Thank you for listening to my story. I hope it helps you find the courage to stand up for what is right in your own life. Take care of yourself. You deserve it.